It was a moonless night, the kind that gave birth to legends and whispered secrets. My heart pounded like a drum as my husband, Mark, and I stood before the ancient Japanese shrine nestled deep within the forest. Its worn crimson torii gate, flanked by gnarled cherry blossom trees, seemed like a portal to another world. Mark and I were adventurous souls, seekers of the extraordinary. Our love for the unknown had led us here, to this remote corner of Japan, to explore the legend that had haunted our dreams for weeks. They called it the Shrine of Tormented Spirits, and the locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning us not to venture there after dark. But we were undeterred, driven by a shared fascination with the paranormal. The digital display on my wristwatch blinked 2 a.m., casting an eerie blue glow in the darkness. The forest surrounding us was silent, as if nature itself held its breath. I glanced at Mark, his face illuminated by the soft glow of his flashlight, and saw a mixture of excitement and trepidation in his eyes. "Are you sure about this, Emily?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart still racing. "We've come this far, Mark. We can't turn back now." With cautious steps, we passed through the Crimson Gate and ventured deeper into the shrine grounds. The gravel path crunched beneath our feet as we made our way toward the heart of the shrine, where the main building stood, its wooden beams creaking in the wind. The shrine was eerily beautiful, but its silence was oppressive. As we approached the main hall, a sense of unease settled over me. The moonlight filtered through gaps in the ancient wooden walls, casting strange, shifting shadows on the ground. The air was heavy with the scent of incense long extinguished, and the atmosphere was thick with the weight of history. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter around me, and Mark placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Stay close, Emily." The main hall was a cavernous space, dimly lit by the soft glow of our flashlights. Rows of wooden prayer tablets lined the walls, their surfaces etched with kanji characters that seemed to writhe in the flickering light. A large altar dominated the far end of the hall, adorned with offerings of food, sake, and burning candles. "This is incredible," Mark whispered, his voice tinged with excitement. But as we approached the altar, a strange feeling washed over me. I glanced at the offerings and noticed that they looked fresh, as though they had been placed there just moments ago. That was impossible. We were the only ones here. "Mark, did you see that?" I asked, pointing at the altar. He followed my gaze and frowned. "That's weird. Maybe someone else is here." We exchanged uneasy glances before continuing to explore the shrine. Our footsteps echoed in the eerie silence as we wandered deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the main hall. The wooden floorboards groaned beneath us, protesting our intrusion. Suddenly we heard a soft, haunting melody, like the strains of a distant flute. The mournful tune sent shivers down my spine, and I grabbed Mark's arm. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He nodded, his flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. "It's coming from that way." We followed the haunting melody, our hearts pounding in rhythm with its mournful notes. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, its twisting path leading us deeper into the shrine's heart. Finally, we arrived at a small chamber bathed in an otherworldly blue light. At its center stood an ancient stone statue of a woman, her face serene and yet somehow sorrowful. She held a long, slender flute to her lips, and her fingers danced over its ghostly keys, producing the ethereal melody that had drawn us here. "That's her," I whispered, my voice trembling. "The spirit they spoke of." Mark nodded, his eyes fixed on the statue. "It's beautiful, but it's also unsettling." As we approached the statue, the music grew louder, filling the chamber with an almost tangible sadness. I reached out to touch the statue, my fingers grazing its cold stone surface. Suddenly the music stopped, and the room plunged into darkness. Mark's flashlight flickered and died. Panic set in as we stood there, enveloped in blackness. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone and turned on its flashlight. The beam of light revealed that the statue had disappeared. In its place stood a woman dressed in a flowing white kimono, her jet black hair cascading over her shoulders. She was ethereal, like a ghostly apparition. My heart thundered in my chest as I gasped, "Mark, look!" He turned his phone's flashlight toward the woman, and his face paled. The woman's eyes were empty voids, like endless abysses, and her gaze bore into our souls. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. her voice a haunting echo in the darkness. Mark took a step back, his voice trembling. "Who are you?" The woman's lips curled into a sinister smile, and she raised the flute to her lips once more. The mournful melody resumed, and with it, the room seemed to come alive. The walls of the chamber were adorned with countless torii gates, each one glowing with an eerie blue light. A sense of foreboding washed over us as the torii gates began to sway and creak, casting ominous shadows on the floor. They seemed to whisper secrets of ancient grudges and long-forgotten vendettas. The woman's voice grew stronger, filling the chamber with her haunting song. "I am Ochimizu, and this shrine is my prison. For centuries I have waited, seeking vengeance upon those who wronged me." I exchanged a terrified glance with Mark, who was visibly shaken. "What do you want from us?" Ochimizu's laughter echoed through the chamber, a bone-chilling sound that made my blood run cold. "Your presence here has awakened me. You will be my vessels, my instruments of revenge." Before we could react, the torii gates surrounding us began to tremble and shake violently. They detached themselves from the walls and floated in the air, forming a circle around us. Ochimizu's ghostly figure slowly advanced, her eyes fixed on us with a hunger for retribution. "Mark, we have to get out of here!" I cried, my voice trembling. But before we could make a move, the torii gates surged forward, enveloping us in an ethereal prison. Their glow intensified, blinding us, and I felt myself being pulled into the darkness. When my vision cleared, Mark and I found ourselves in a nightmarish realm, a spectral version of the shrine grounds. The torii gates loomed overhead, twisted and contorted like the bars of a prison. Ochimizu's laughter echoed all around us. "This is our fate," she whispered, her voice a chilling whisper in the air. Desperation fueled us as we searched for an escape. Mark tried to pry open the spectral gates, but they resisted his every effort, as if they were alive and determined to keep us imprisoned. Hours passed, and despair threatened to consume us. But just when all hope seemed lost, I noticed something in the distance, a faint glimmer of dawn breaking through the trees. "Mark, look, it's morning," I exclaimed. With newfound determination, we rushed toward the light. As we reached the edge of the spectral shrine grounds, the torii gates trembled and wailed, their grip on us weakening. With a final burst of strength, we broke free, stumbling out into the real world. The early morning sun bathed the shrine grounds in warm, golden light. We were back at the entrance of the shrine, just outside the crimson torii gate. Ochimizu's haunting melody had ceased, and the shrine appeared dormant once more. We collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, our clothes disheveled and spirits broken. The weight of the night's horrors pressed upon us, and we knew that we had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. As we caught our breath, I glanced at Mark, who was still trembling with fear. "We have to warn others," I said, my voice filled with determination. "No one else should suffer what we went through." Mark nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude for our miraculous escape. We made our way back to the nearby village and told the locals of our harrowing experience. They listened with somber expressions, confirming that the shrine was indeed cursed by the vengeful spirit of Ochimizu. With their guidance, we sought the help of a local priest who performed a purification ritual on us, cleansing us of Ochimizu's malevolent influence. The shrine was sealed off and declared off limits after dark, a warning to all who dared to venture into its haunted depths. Mark and I returned to our home country, forever haunted by the memory of that fateful night. We had sought adventure, but we had found something far more sinister. Our journey into the shrine of tormented spirits had left scars on our souls, a reminder that some legends should remain undisturbed, and some spirits should never be awakened.